Welcome to the Republican Rundown. My name is Tommy Pigott. I'm the Strategic Communications Director at the Republican National Committee.
Hey everyone, I'm Madison Gesiotto Gilbert, Republican National Committee, National Spokeswoman.
Hey Madison, how you doing?
Good, Tommy, how are you?
Good. How was your Halloween?
Good, we had a great Halloween. It was a fun one. Baby's first time trick-or-treating, so that was fun. I had a little cookie monster out there in the streets last night.
That's great. That's great. So, did you go to the White House for trick-or-treating? I'm guessing no, but I just want to make sure that your child wasn't traumatized by Joe Biden giving him candy or something like that.
Unfortunately, none of us had the opportunity to go hang out with Joe and Jill Biden on Halloween, but maybe next year.
Well, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, or X as it's now known, Joe Biden kind of had a disastrous time really giving out candy. He was embarrassing again, and we actually, I think we have, do we have that clip of Joe Biden that we can play of him handing out candy this Halloween? So there he is, trying to take a photo here, looking visibly confused. I mean, it's very telling that Joe Biden can't even take a picture without embarrassing this country, I think.
He doesn't know where he is, what he's doing. I mean, this is not surprising. We continue to see it time and time again. I guess Halloween would be a fitting holiday for him because he's scary all the time as far as I'm concerned. I would never let my child go trick-or-treating with Joe Biden. But when you watch the clip, again, it's sad for our country because we should have a leader that's so much stronger than this, that's so much more coherent than this, and we don't. And that's why nobody across the world fears us.
You know, and what was shocking too, and just to show you how low the bar is, the Biden White House put out those clips and compared them to previous presidents as if it was a good look for Joe Biden. I mean, that's how low the bar is now for Joe Biden.
Well, I mean, what else are they going to put out? I mean, other than a graphic saying Happy Halloween, there's not much they can do. Every single clip of him, every footage, every speech, every comment to the press, it's all a disaster. When he's commenting on things, he's totally off base, and that's why they try to never let him speak. You see that video, I think, from a couple weeks ago where he was coming back from Israel, and he's on the plane, and they didn't expect him to talk to the press, and he did, and pretty much everyone in the background that works for him looked absolutely horrified and was trying to stop it. I mean, if you're staffing Joe Biden, you're trying to keep that guy in the basement, you're trying to keep him in the closet, you're trying to keep him anywhere but in front of the people, in front of the press, because of the state of, where he is. He doesn't know where he is. He cannot speak. He is not coherent. Sometimes I wonder if he even knows he's president of the United States. I'd be surprised if he does.
Yeah, Blinken's face, a face of pure horror, or he was lurking in the background while Joe Biden was talking. It is so embarrassing.
I think he was saying, please stop this, or let's stop this. There's some clip that went around where you could see reading his lips that he was asking them to end it.
Yeah, and at the very least, his body language was saying, "Please, please stop this." I mean, and to be honest, from the standpoint of the American people, you're exactly right. This is sad to see. We should have a president who is able to pass out candy on Halloween without looking like a fool. I mean, that should be the lowest bar possible. And for some reason, the Democrats are insisting on not even passing that bar. It's really kind of shocking to me.
But it's not just him. I mean, you even look at Vice President Kamala Harris, who is a little bit more coherent, but no more useful than Joe Biden. And we see her recent interview, and I know we have tons of clips from that, so maybe we can run one of those and talk a little bit about her interview with CBS.
She was asked about why their policies specifically aren't registering with the American people. And we have that clip as well, I think, if we could play that, when she's asked about why Biden is so unpopular specifically in their policies.
The challenge that we have as an administration is we got to let people know who brung it to them. That's our challenge. But it is not that the work we are doing is not very, very popular with a lot of people.
Very, very popular with a lot of people. I don't know if she's actually spoken to anyone that's been impacted by their policies recently, because that's not the polling I'm seeing. I don't know what you're seeing.
Well, I've just been spending the past couple days trying to figure out who brung it to us after watching her interview. Really bizarre and very off-base take on things. She talks, I think, a little bit earlier in her interview about how popular that they are in polling among young people when it comes to climate change and student loans, but the entire question surrounded around the fact that they're simply not popular with any people in general, and that's the problem that they're going to face in 2024. I think good question by CBS on that one, but clearly a terrible answer by her because she failed to address it. Again, though, there is a difficulty in her response because how can you really address that? You're not popular because you're failing, and what president or vice president's ever really going to say that on camera? So what do you expect? Do you expect her to divert attention away from the actual question and to deflect, which is what she did? But at the same time, it does not change the very, very real reality that people are struggling as a result of their bad policies. They've failed on every front. We talk about this time and time again, every single week. It doesn't matter what issue we're talking about, whether it's the economy, whether it's the border, whether it's national security, whether, no matter what it is, they promised the world and they underdelivered or didn't deliver at all. And that's what we're all experiencing and seeing right now all across the country. Whether you're from an urban area or rural area, it does not matter. Everybody's feeling the impacts of what they've done.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out exactly what she could have been referring to when she said what they've done is very, very popular. So I was looking through some recent polling, and Joe Biden's approval rating is underwater on the economy, on the border, on inflation, on foreign policy, on energy policy, food prices. 91% of Americans disapprove of food prices under Joe Biden's administration. Housing prices surging. Americans saying they're more concerned about affording monthly expenses as opposed to saving retirement. One of the first times that's ever happened. So I'm still trying to figure out, what is she talking about when she says what they're doing is very, very popular? I have no idea.
She's certainly not talking about food prices. I was at Costco yesterday, and my husband and I were saying, for the past 4 years, we get the same order like every time we go. And it's well over double what it used to be, if not triple on a lot of the items. So we're all paying so much more just for simple necessities, just for our food, for our gas, for everything. And it's seriously really disappointing. I mean, every single time you go, you feel a little bit defeated. And I always think, I'm in a very blessed position and I get very frustrated. So I really get concerned for so many people I know who aren't in that same position, who are out there struggling and having to make tough decisions and maybe not able to buy the items they used to buy as a result of what's going on. And things continue to rise, wages continue to go down. And it's just not the only thing that people are paying more for. And that's the difficult part. It's bad enough that food prices have gone up, prices at the grocery store have gone up, but people are paying more at the pump. They're paying more for their utilities. They're paying more for housing. A lot of people, as we talked about last week, can't even afford to buy a home because of the crisis going on. They're being forced to rent at higher prices. It's just absolutely a disaster on every single front. And many people, I think, are going to be forced to see it worsen before it gets better over the next year and a half. And that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, that is scary. And I think it's also scary to say that, all these challenges people face, and they're telling us that they don't approve of the job he's doing. It's very clear. It's not a mixed message. It's not an unclear signal. And she's going out there and saying, all the crises that you're facing, don't worry, we're still very popular. I mean, that's literally their excuse here. It's to try to gaslight, to use that political term, people into believing something and not believe their own eyes. I mean, it's really, really disturbing. And I think it's also, it's the same sort of message that Joe Biden is putting out there. I mean, just yesterday, he went out there and he said his goal has been to make an economy that works for everybody. I think we have that clip too, because it shows, I think, the disconnect, if we could play that, between what he's saying and the policies that he's pursuing.
I ran for president to make sure the economy works for everyone, at least gives everyone an equal shot.
So he's going out there with a smirk saying, I ran to make sure the economy works for everyone. And he's saying that while Americans are saying the economy's not working for me. It's such a disconnect.
Again, like you said, I guess if you gaslight people long enough or you lie as many times as you possibly can, maybe they'll believe you. And I think that's been the strategy of what the Democrats are doing. But Joe Biden, in a lot of clips lately, seems like he's smirking or laughing at really inappropriate times. He's clearly been hanging out with Kamala a lot. There was that really weird video the other day, the clip of Kamala that was when she was talking about the artificial intelligence, and he looks like he's about to crack up the entire time in that one. It's kind of funny when you see his reaction in some of these videos, but in this one specifically, totally inappropriate, totally wrong. And again, when people are suffering and struggling as a result of his bad economic policies, I don't think he should be saying those things.
Yeah, he shouldn't be. I mean, it goes to show the only people that Bidenomics has worked for is the Biden family in terms of their influence peddling schemes that have been reported and reported and reported. It's definitely not working for the American people. And I remember that clip too. It was on AI earlier this week, and that reminds me of when Kamala Harris, who's the AI or one of the experts the administration has, and she is still fascinated by the fact that AI stands for artificial intelligence, and she spent about 30 seconds describing how that's what it stands for. So I don't think we're in good hands when it comes to AI. But this sort of like gaslighting, this reality versus what they're saying, I think comes into play with the border too. Mayorkas was before the House, before Congress, before the Senate, talking about the border crisis this week. And there was one contrast that our research team caught that I wanted to play because it shows the difference between what Mayorkas is saying about the border and the reality of the border. If we could play that.
It is my testimony that the border is secure.
How many gotaways did CBP record in fiscal year 2023?
I believe, Senator, that number is over 600,000.
Some of the facts was pulling here, just showing Mayorkas saying the border is secure is ridiculous. You have CBP saying they don't have operational control of the border. You have fentanyl pouring over the border, according to DEA, at record rates. 600,000 gotaways just this year, but 1.6 million gotaways since Joe Biden took office. You have 70,000 illegal immigrants from so-called special interest countries, which are of concern for national security reasons, being released into this country with little to no vetting since Joe Biden took office. I mean, it's stat after stat after stat, and they're still saying the border is secure. When are they going to wake up and actually do something about this, you think?
They started to maybe do a little bit, but not nearly enough. They said they're going to secure a small portion of the border recently. They should have secured the whole border. It was already paid for. They sold off those materials that cost our country over $300 million for a mere $2 million, and then turned around and said they're going to build a little bit of the border wall. They should have built the entire rest of the border wall that had already been paid for. They should have secured the border completely, because even with a secure border, we still have an immigration crisis. We still have an issue in this country that needs to be addressed. So you have to start somewhere, and securing the border, I think, is that first step. And then they could move on to look at the court backlogs, to look at policy that could help alleviate this from being an issue in the future. And that's, I think, the big mistake that was made. They stopped the construction of the border wall, and that kind of set off a domino effect in terms of destroying every other ounce of progress that had been made or could have been made over the past almost 3 years.
Yeah, 94 or close to 100, somewhere around that number, executive actions taken by Joe Biden to open the border within his first couple months in office. And going back to that Kamala Harris interview recently, I saw you posted a video about this on Instagram. She was asked about the border, again, why they're failing on the border. That was so much of a theme of her interview. Why are you failing on so many issues? But why are you failing on the border? And she said Congress needs to act. And you pointed out in your video that the House Republicans actually have acted on the border, have acted to secure the border.
Yeah, they had H.R. 2 back in May, but before even being able to get that through Congress, the Biden administration immediately put out a formal statement saying that they would veto it. So it hasn't been picked up by the Senate, and if it does and it gets all the way to Biden's desk, he's going to veto it. So, I mean, we're in a really, really sticky position with the Biden administration and their border policy, which really has been, again, a complete failure. It feels very intentional in so many ways. When you talk to people, I talked to some of my friends down in Texas that have been impacted by this more than anybody, especially in the El Paso region, and what they're seeing. And they can't help but say that it feels very intentional, because they continue, you know, from a law enforcement perspective, from a border patrol perspective, to reach out to the administration and express the concerns, tell them what they're seeing. And they've seen, you know, numbers significantly higher than what you're seeing when you talk about migrants being bused by the federal government to New York City, and New York City saying it's unsustainable. So imagine what these small towns on the Texas border have been going through with absolutely no support from their federal government. It's really unbelievable unless you've seen it with your own eyes.
It really is, and the point of seeing it with your own eyes, Joe Biden still hasn't. He went down to the border for a complete photo op. They cleared El Paso before he went down, set up a complete fake photo op for him to go down there. And yet he claims he's too busy to go back to the border. He claims he's too busy to go to East Palestine. There's actually a comment he made on that, talking about seeing with your own eyes, that he said he's been around the world and it's good to be back home. I think we actually have this clip, if we could play that as well.
I've been going around the world a lot lately. It's good to be home.
Going around the world a lot lately. I mean, when you hear that, what do you think?
Well, I think about the fact that he literally spent maybe a day, if that, in Israel, and that is the only trip abroad he's taken any time in recent history, despite obviously spending his 390th day on vacation. Actually, I think he's been over 390 days now on vacation. So it's just BS is what it is. He has not been around the world a lot lately. He's been sleeping and on vacation the past month.
Yeah, absolutely absurd. Absurd. He goes out there and says, I've been around the world a lot lately. Literally one day abroad, like you said. He's gone to on vacation to Delaware twice since then. He spent almost an entire month this summer, almost an entire month on vacation at the beach. Still hasn't been back to the border to actually see the crisis. Still hasn't been to East Palestine. It's absurd. I think it just goes again to the fact that he will say anything, regardless of the truth, to try to get this message out there. But it shows he doesn't really care about solving these crises he's created because he's just going out there and lying about it again and again.
And this is exactly why people across the country hate career politicians like Joe Biden. They recognize that their hard-earned money goes towards their federal taxes to pay people like Joe Biden for years and years, sometimes decades and decades, and those people get really comfortable and do not work hard for them. And he is a perfect example of that, and he's a perfect example of the disdain that people have with government right now.
Yeah, and more evidence showing that it really has been this family name they've been profiting off of, oversight releasing more and more evidence. They're really not working for the American people. It's such a tragedy. There's really just so much to go through, so many failures from Joe Biden. It's really been another week of failure, and it really shows why Joe Biden cannot be reelected in 2024.
Yep, and we'll be back talking about it all and so much more next week. And of course, we'll be on that debate stage in Miami next Wednesday. Be sure to tune in either with our streaming partners Rumble or to NBC, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
Can't wait. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great moment for our Republican candidates. Check it out, and we'll be back next week. See everybody then.
See you guys.